You are not an afterthought. You are not an accident that heaven had to accommodate. Before the first star was flung into place, before light pierced the void, I spoke your name, not in haste, not in reaction, but in perfect, unshaken intention. The sound of your name came forth like melody, sung in the language of eternity, resonating through dimensions you do not remember, but your soul has never forgotten. You may not remember the moment I formed you, but I do. I remember the stillness before the breath. I remember the space I made in myself to hold you. You were not created from scarcity. You were born of overflow. I didn't create you because something was missing. I created you because my love needed another place to rest. And so I carved out a space in the fabric of creation, and I called it you. And over that space I whispered a name. That name is not the one the world gave you, not the one others chose when they didn't understand your heart, not the one you've sometimes used to label your pain. No, the name I gave you existed before fear had language, before shame had syllables, before you were called too much or not enough. I called you mine, I called you whole, I called you beloved, and that name, child, is still echoing in my heart. I've watched you live with the weight of names that were never yours. The names that clung like dust, inadequate, invisible, broken, unworthy. You wore them not because you wanted to, but because the noise around you grew louder than the truth within you. But even then, when the world's labels pressed heavy against your soul, when your own thoughts turned against you, when you couldn't tell the difference between discipline and distance, I was still speaking, still calling you by the name that never changed. You may have forgotten it, but I never stopped saying it. I remember the exact breath when I formed your spirit. It wasn't clinical, it wasn't mechanical, it was sacred, it was intimate. It was the kind of creation that only comes from deep love. I didn't simply assign you a soul like an item on a list. I breathed you into being like a poet crafting a masterpiece. Every contour of your character was etched with delight. Every fiber of your essence was chosen with joy. And in that moment, before time began, I called you by name. That name was not defined by behavior. It wasn't shaped by performance. It wasn't measured by productivity. It was born of presence, of my nearness, of my desire to be close to you. Not because I needed to fix you, but because I wanted to love you. There are parts of you the world has never seen, parts you've hidden even from yourself. The tenderness you were told was weakness, the fire you were told to dim, the purity that felt too fragile for this world. But I see it all. I remember it all. Because I wrote it into you. You were never meant to become someone else in order to be accepted. You were never asked to shrink. You were never designed to carry the weight of a false identity. You were created to walk in my breath, to move in my rhythm, to live from the name I whispered before time. That name still lives inside you. Even now, as you read these words, there is a stirring. That is not coincidence. That is remembrance. You are remembering something ancient, something holy, something that belongs to you even when everything around you feels borrowed or broken. You are remembering me. And more than that, you are remembering what it felt like to be fully seen before you did anything to earn it, before you tried to prove your worth, before you believed love had to be maintained. That moment, the moment I formed you, was not performance-based. It was presence-filled, and my presence has never left you. You have looked for your name in many places, in the eyes of those you tried to please, in the titles you tried to earn, in the roles you performed to feel needed. But none of them could hold it. None of them were made to carry something that sacred. That is why your soul has always felt a little restless, even in the middle of success. That is why applause never settled you, why accomplishment never quite silenced the ache. Because you weren't created to be named by outcome. You were created to be known by me, and I have never changed my mind. I watched you when you first started to drift, not in anger, not with disappointment, but with deep, aching tenderness. like a parent watching their child search for something that was never lost. You thought you had to become better. You thought you had to be impressive. You thought you had to be louder, stronger, faster, holier. But I never asked you to be those things. I asked you to be mine. I asked you to stay close. I asked you to believe that the name I whispered into you was enough. You didn't fail me when you forgot. You only forgot what it felt like to be loved without conditions. But forgetting is not forsaking, and I have never forsaken you. Every time you've wondered, who am I really? Every time you've stood at a mirror and felt unfamiliar with the face looking back, every time you've tried to explain the ache you couldn't quite name, that was your spirit longing for home. Not a place, not a position, but the origin, the breath, the voice. My voice. The world taught you to identify yourself by survival, by roles, by reactions, by what others needed from you. But I knew you before you had to become anyone, and that version of you, the real you, is not buried. She's not lost. She's waiting. She's waiting for the permission to come alive again. She's waiting for the sound of her name and the voice that first spoke it. And child, I am speaking it now, not with disappointment, not with demand, but with the same affection I had when I formed you. I am not trying to get you to prove anything. I'm trying to bring you back to the place where nothing was required except your yes. Do you remember the moment joy felt simple, before you measured it, before you qualified it, before you put it on the shelf and said, later, when I'm worthy, I do. I remember the unfiltered light in your spirit. I remember the way your soul trusted without flinching. I remember when your questions were wonder, not fear. That childlike part of you was not a phase. It was design, and it still lives. You've grown, yes. You've endured things that have hardened your outer layers, but I have preserved the softness of your soul. I didn't let it be destroyed, because it's from that softness your real name echoes loudest. There is a sound in you that doesn't come from your pain. It comes from promise. It rises when you hear truth. It stirs when you sense me near. It returns when you stop resisting your belovedness. That sound has been trying to rise again. You've heard it in tears you didn't expect. You've felt it in moments of stillness when everything else paused. You've noticed it when a quiet strength began to surface where anxiety once reigned. That is not coincidence. That is me calling your name, the name I gave, the name I never revoked, the name that holds your essence, not your efforts. When I named you, I wasn't reacting to who you might become. I was declaring who you already are, fully known, fully chosen, fully safe. Before you took your first breath, before you formed a sentence, before you ever worshipped or wandered, I called you mine, and no action, no failure, no silence since that moment has changed my mind. I don't name based on performance. I don't define by public approval. I name from the place of intimacy, the place where I see what no one else sees, not just what you do, but who you are when no one is watching. I see the moments you've doubted your goodness, the nights you've laid awake and wondered if you've become too much or somehow not enough. I see the ways you've tried to edit your essence just to be more palatable to the world. But child, you were never meant to fit into boxes made by broken systems. You were meant to reflect my heart. You were meant to be a living testimony, not of perfection but of presence. You think your history disqualifies you? You think the wounds you carry somehow made your name less worthy? Let me tell you something. Holy. The very things you thought would disqualify you have become the soil for deeper grace. I do not overlook your pain. I transform it. I take what others discard and raise it into beauty. I take what the world calls weakness and anoint it with wisdom. I take the pieces you've tried to hide and form from them a vessel of light. Nothing is wasted here. Not the years of hiding, not the nights of aching, not the seasons of confusion. Even your silence has been sacred to me, because in the silence, I was still whispering your name, and I want you to hear me again. Not as an echo from the past, but as a voice in the present, calling you, holding you, naming you again. You are not what they said. You are not what fear repeated. You are not what disappointment tried to carve into your soul. You are what I declared before time began. Loved, known, set apart, safe, mine. Your name is not written in dust. It cannot be erased by circumstance. It does not rise and fall with emotion. It is etched into me, into my very nature, into the rhythm of my voice, into the breath I first used to form your being. And when I call your name now, heaven still listens. Creation still responds, because the name I gave you carries weight, not the weight of burden, but the weight of glory. Do not be afraid of your tenderness. Do not despise the way your soul longs for more. This longing is not weakness. It is holy remembrance. It is the ancient knowing within you that says, I was made for closeness. I was made for meaning. I was made to be known and still loved. And yes, yes you are. That is the name I gave you. Not just a name to be spoken, but a truth to be lived. Not just a word, but an identity wrapped in eternity. I see you trying to be strong, trying to carry things that were never yours, trying to prove that you're still enough. But listen to me. You don't have to hold everything, you just have to be held. That's what your name invites, that's what I built into it. It's not a name of striving, it's a name of rest. You were never meant to find your identity through exhaustion. You were meant to walk in it through communion. And I am here, not just above you, not just near you, but within you, echoing that same truth over and over. You are mine. You are mine. You are mine. You've asked so many times, where did I lose myself? But the truth is, you were never lost to me. You've wandered through deserts, through performance, through people who didn't see you, through seasons that cracked your confidence, but I've held the coordinates of your soul in my hands the whole time. You've never been more than one breath away from me. You've never drifted beyond the sound of my voice. Even when you turned down the volume of your spirit to survive, I kept speaking. Even when you forgot how to listen, I kept singing. Not demanding, not rebuking, just calling. Softly, faithfully, in the language of love. I have always known who you are. I have never been confused by your process. I have never changed my tone based on your behavior. I'm not the voice of pressure in your head. I'm not the ache of comparison in your chest. I'm not the echo of those who couldn't see your light. I am the one who lit it, and I don't call fire weak when it flickers. I just keep shielding it from the wind until it burns again. You've heard others speak of destiny as a distant goal, but I see it as a living flame within you, already present, already pulsing. It's not waiting for you at the end of some great performance. It's not on the other side of perfection. It's been with you from the first breath, and it's rising now, not because you've earned it, but because you've finally stopped resisting it. This is what your name does. It activates what I placed in you. It reawakens the buried things, not with striving, but with remembering. You don't have to chase your purpose. You carry it. You don't have to find your identity in someone else's definition. You are already defined by the one who cannot lie. I did not name you fragile. I named you faithful. I did not name you disposable. I named you delight. Let me say it clearly. You are not a problem I'm trying to fix. You are a promise I'm fulfilling. The pressure you feel to be more, to fix it all, to hurry up and get it right, that didn't come from me. That came from fear, and fear is not your shepherd. I am. When I whispered your name before time began, I didn't whisper it into a void. I whispered it into eternity, and eternity responded with joy. The stars rejoiced, the heavens opened. The rhythm of all things began to shift to make room for you. That's how much your existence mattered. That's how much it still matters, and nothing you've done has changed that. Not the tears, not the doubts, not the years you thought were wasted. I do not see wasted. I see woven into a tapestry I am still designing, woven into grace that's deeper than your mistakes. Every detour you've walked, I've repurposed. Every shadow you've stood in, I filled with my presence. Every name you took on out of pain, I am now peeling away in gentleness. Let me do that. Let me strip the names that carry shame. Let me lift the labels that suffocate your light. Let me show you what I've always seen, a soul worth saving, a child worth calling, a name worth repeating. Because when I formed you, I didn't just see potential. I saw beauty. And beauty in my kingdom is not based on symmetry. It's based on spirit, on wholeness, on being who you are without fear. You've spent so long trying to be worthy of being chosen. But child, I chose you before worthiness was a concept. Before you could give me anything in return, I called you worthy. Because love doesn't wait for proof. It pours itself out at the beginning, and that's what I did with you. I poured myself into your design. Not out of obligation, but out of delight. Do you understand what that means? You are not a product of need. You are a reflection of joy. You were not formed from desperation. You were formed from desire. Mine. And so I named you not according to your fear, but according to your fullness. Not according to your future mistakes, but according to my eternal mercy. I did not write your name in pencil, easily erased by shame. I carved it into my being, into the Lamb who was slain before the foundation of the world. This name of yours, the one I keep whispering into your spirit when the world is too loud, it is safe. It is sealed. It is still alive. It has survived what you thought would destroy you. It has outlived the labels others put on you. It has remained unshaken, waiting for this moment, this breath, this holy remembering. You are not who the pain tried to name. You are not who the silence tried to erase. You are not who the pressure tried to force. You are who I called, who I loved, who I claimed before you ever lifted a finger. And now that you're remembering, I want you to rest. Yes, rest. Not run, not perform, not strive to make up for lost time. I am not rushing you. I am restoring you. I am rebuilding your life not from scratch, but from the foundation that never cracked your name. You may still feel the echoes of your old identities, the names you wore to survive, but they are not eternal. They do not carry divine breath. They will fade as you keep listening to mine. Every time you return to my voice, those false names lose power. Every time you choose stillness over striving, the sound of your true identity grows louder. I am not asking you to earn what I gave before you were born. I am asking you to receive it, to lean into it, to breathe it in like oxygen, to let it move through your limbs like music, to let it become your native tongue again. Because this is where your story began, not in the pain, not in the performance, but in the whisper before time. The whisper that named you, the whisper that waited through your silence, the whisper that now becomes a voice, steady, clear, and still full of love. You are mine. You are safe. You are home. Your name has never left me. And now, it's time to live like you remember. You've wondered why I went quiet, why the warmth faded, why my voice, once so clear, seemed to drift behind clouds of waiting. You whispered prayers into the night and heard nothing in return, not even an echo. You searched your heart for wrongdoing, wondering what you did to cause the distance. You replayed every word, every thought, every moment you could have missed me, thinking, what if I failed you again? But child, the silence was never punishment. It was protection. It was preparation. It was my presence, wrapped in stillness, so sacred, so deep, so holy, It required quiet to be known. Not all love shouts. Not all nearness announces itself. Sometimes the holiest closeness looks like quiet. Stillness. A hand held in the dark. A breath that says, "I'm here," even when there are no words. You thought I had left you, but the truth is, I had come closer than ever. Close enough to hold your shaking soul without words. Close enough to carry what you wouldn't dare say aloud. Close enough to gather your fragmented thoughts and tuck them safely inside my heart. You didn't fail to hear me. You were just in a season where my whisper was too deep for language. The noise around you grew so loud that I chose silence, not to leave you but to lead you. To bring you beneath the surface where true connection lives. Where you don't need sound to be seen. Where you don't need clarity to be kept. I am not intimidated by your questions. I'm not disappointed by your doubts. I'm not offended that you felt far, because I know what it feels like to walk through quiet valleys. I know what it means to be misunderstood, to be longed for, to be searched for in shadows. I too have waited. I've waited for you to stop assuming silence equals absence. I've waited for your heart to realize that stillness is often how healing begins. In the silence, I was tending to roots. I was guarding the core of your identity. I was untangling lies that only loosen when the world is quiet. I was forming something sacred in the hidden spaces, something too delicate to be shaped in the noise. You thought nothing was happening. But the truth is, everything was happening. You were being rewired for stillness, rebuilt for intimacy, unhooked from the approval that once kept you performing. The quiet wasn't empty, it was full of me. You've been taught to measure my presence by emotion, by goosebumps, by miracles, by loud worship and sudden breakthroughs. But I want to teach you something deeper. I do my deepest work in the dark. I grow gardens in the silence. I birth strength in shadows. I don't just meet you on mountaintops. I meet you in the cave. I speak when no one else is listening, even when you think you're the one who went mute. You didn't fail in your faith. You were just being deepened. There are things in you that only bloom in the dark, things that don't respond to spotlight, things that need slowness, that need the ache of mystery to take root. Your compassion, your depth, your discernment, your unshakable tenderness, they are not born in applause, they are born in quiet. And I love them because they look like me. You've been grieving the silence like a loss. But what if it was a beginning? What if the emptiness was actually room being made? What if you were not abandoned but invited deeper? I know it felt cold, I know it felt empty, but absence and presence are not always as opposite as they seem. You thought the silence meant I stepped back. But what if I was waiting for you to stop striving, to stop filling the space with noise so I could speak without being interrupted? You've prayed, God, just speak to me. And I have, in the steady way the morning light returns, in the unexpected tear during a quiet moment, in the conviction that rises without condemnation, in the sudden stillness that calms your racing thoughts. That was me. Not shouting, but present. Not loud, but unmistakably near. I'm not trying to impress you. I'm trying to hold you. I'm not trying to perform for you. I'm drawing you into something deeper, a relationship that doesn't depend on fireworks, but on fidelity. A nearness that's not always loud, but never leaves. You feared the quiet because it reminds you of absence. But what if it's the sacred ground where I'm most at work? What if the silence was where I stitched your name deeper into your soul? You are learning now to stay still without spiraling, to wait without wondering if you've been disqualified, to trust without feeling constant reassurance. This is growth. This is maturity. This is the foundation for the next thing I want to build in you, because I cannot build something lasting on a soul that only believes when she feels. I'm anchoring you in what's eternal, not the feelings that pass, but the truth that remains. My love for you does not increase when I speak, and it does not decrease when I'm quiet. It is steady. It is settled. It is sure. You've cried. Just say something. And I've answered, I am. In stillness. In rest. In the way you now find peace without explanations. You are learning that faith is not built on constant answers. It is built on abiding, remaining, resting in the truth that even when I'm silent, I am still here, still good, still calling you mine. So don't rush out of the silence. Don't try to fill it with noise or effort or distraction. Let it become your sanctuary. Let it become the place where you learn to breathe with me again. You will hear my voice more clearly when you stop demanding that it sound a certain way. You will feel my nearness when you stop measuring it by emotion. You will know my heart when you stop fearing the quiet. This season has not been empty. It has been pregnant with healing, with memory, with restoration. And now the silence begins to shift. Not because it failed, but because it fulfilled its purpose. It made space for truth. It broke the patterns of noise. It opened you to hear again, not with your ears, but with your spirit. You've come through the valley. You've survived the quiet. You've found me in a voice you didn't expect. Your own breath, your own rest, your own stillness. And I'm still here, whispering, not with pressure, not with urgency, but with a steady affection. I was never far, and now you know how to hear me in the quiet too. This is your gift now, to carry peace even when heaven seems still, to walk without fear when answers are slow, to know that silence doesn't mean separation. It means sacred. It means safe. It means I trust you with stillness. And I trust that now, you'll carry it not as a question but as a sign that you've heard me even when I said nothing. That's how deep we've gone. That's how sure your name is. That's how steady our connection has become. Let that be your strength. Let that be your song. You are not abandoned. You were never forgotten. You were simply invited into the silence where love speaks loudest. There are names you've been carrying that I never wrote for you. Names that attach themselves to your soul not through truth but through trauma, not through revelation but through rejection. And I've watched you wear them like armor. Heavy, tight, uncomfortable, but familiar. You've grown used to them. So used to them that now when I call you by the name I gave you, you flinch, you hesitate. You ask, who, me? Because somewhere along the way, you started believing that shame had the final word. They called you too sensitive, so you hardened. They said you were too much, so you shrank. They told you without words that your softness was inconvenient, so you buried it. Not because you wanted to lose yourself, but because it felt like the only way to stay safe. But child, safety that requires hiding is not safety. It is slow erasure. And I did not form you to be erased. You were told your emotions made you weak. But I say they make you wise. You were told you were only as valuable as what you could offer. But I say you're valuable because I made you. You were told you had to earn rest. But I say rest is your inheritance. Every lie you believed about yourself was rooted in fear. But fear is not your origin. Love is. You've been called many things. Too emotional, too quiet, too complicated, not enough, too broken, unqualified, invisible. But I never called you that, and I never agreed with any of those names, not even once. I know you've tried to fix yourself, to clean up before coming close. But there is nothing in you that scares me. Nothing in your story that surprises me. Nothing in your struggle that invalidates the name I gave you. You are not what happened to you. You are not who left. You are not what failed. You are not the version of yourself you became to survive. You are who I formed. You are the original design. You are the breath I still remember. You are the softness I preserved. And the name I call you by is not stained by time or trauma. Let me name the names you were never meant to carry. Fear? Not yours. Striving? Not yours. Self-hate? Never yours. Shame? I never authored that. Disconnection? I never asked you to perform for belonging. Perfectionism? That's the world's God, not me. I do not require flawlessness. I require faithfulness. And even that, I supply the strength for it. You've tried to prove you're not too far gone. But I'm not keeping score. I'm keeping covenant. You've labeled yourself by your lowest moments. But I see you through redemption, through restoration. Through the name I wrote before the world had language for failure. You are not barely holding on. You are not too late. You are not forgotten. You are not unfixable. You are not someone else's second choice. You are mine. And that's not a concept. That's a name. And child, I see how you've tried. How you've carried these false names like a soldier carries burdens too heavy for one heart. But now, it's time to lay them down. You don't need them anymore. They've helped you survive, but they cannot help you live. They protected you once, but now they are choking you. They gave you language in the dark, but they're keeping you from the light. So let me help you remove them, one by one, name by name, lie by lie. Let me walk you back to the beginning, to the name I gave you in my presence before pain ever touched your soul. The name I spoke when I delighted over you. The name I sang over you while you slept. The name I held while the world forgot. The name that still fits even if you've outgrown everything else. You may not feel ready to take off the armor, but hear me. Your softness is safe with me. Your real name is safe with me. You've been performing to be loved. But love cannot be sustained by performance. It must be rooted in truth. And the truth is, you were never meant to be impressive. You were meant to be whole. You were not designed for burnout. You were designed for communion. You were not created to meet everyone's needs. You were created to walk with me in the cool of the day. You were not made to bear the world's expectations. You were made to reflect my image. Every time you act from a false name, you lose a piece of yourself. But every time you choose truth, you reclaim what was stolen. So take this moment. Breathe. Feel the tension loosen. Feel the weight begin to lift. That's what it feels like to come home to who you really are. You do not need to become someone new. You need to return to someone true. You will be tempted to reach for those old names again, especially when life gets loud, especially when you feel unseen, especially when others don't understand your boundaries. But when that moment comes, pause. Remember, speak your real name aloud, even if it trembles, even if it feels unfamiliar, even if it makes you weep, because tears are not weakness, they are release, they are remembrance, they are resurrection. Let the false names fall like old leaves, let them go. You don't need them anymore. You are not the wounded version of yourself. You are not the exhausted version. You are not the shadow trying to keep everyone comfortable. You are the light I placed in the world. You are the softness that reflects my mercy. You are the healed one who still carries tenderness. You are the called one who still walks in humility. And that's exactly who I want. So no more false names. No more shrinking to make others feel safe. No more carrying labels born in pain. From this day forward, you are free to walk in the name I gave you. Let others be confused. Let the world not understand. That's okay. They didn't form you. I did. And what I formed, I name. And what I name, I protect. And what I protect, I never abandon. Come out of hiding. Step out from under the weight. Let me remind you again, you were never too much. You were never not enough. You were always exactly what my love desired to create. So walk forward now, not with performance, but with peace. Not with pressure, but with presence. Every step you take in truth is one step further from the names that never belonged, and one step deeper into the name that always has. You are mine. You are whole. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified. You are not who fear named. You are who I called. And I am still calling. You thought unraveling meant breaking, that if the pieces started to fall, you'd fall with them. You believed that coming undone meant coming apart forever. But child, this unraveling is not your end. It's your invitation. An invitation to loosen what was never meant to hold you, to release what you've outgrown, to let fall what was never your covering to begin with. This isn't destruction, it's deliverance. I never asked you to hold yourself together. That was pressure. That was performance. That was survival. But I'm not calling you to survive anymore. I'm calling you to be free. And freedom often begins where false strength ends. You've learned to hold your breath, to keep your tears behind your eyes, to stay composed even when your soul trembled. You've learned to harden just enough to make it through, to laugh when you wanted to cry, to nod when you wanted to disappear. But I see through all of it, and I don't condemn you. I understand. You did what you had to do. But now it's safe to let me begin the unraveling, not to expose you, but to uncover you, not to shame you, but to free you. Let me pull the threads gently of every mask you've worn. The overachievement, the people-pleasing, the silence, the pretending to be okay when you were quietly falling apart. Let me sit with you as it all unravels. Let me remind you, this isn't falling apart. This is falling into place. Because as you let the false strength come undone, what remains is your real name. What remains is what I placed there first. What remains is the you I've always known and never stopped loving. Unraveling isn't failure, it's faith that says, I don't need to protect what God already holds. Faith that says, I don't need to perform to be loved. Faith that says, if I let go, He will still be here. And child, I am still here, not with judgment, but with joy. Joy that you're finally loosening the cords of false identity. Joy that you're finally beginning to rest. You've been exhausted by trying to hold everything together. Your body remembers the tension. Your spirit carries the fatigue. But I'm not asking you to impress me. I'm asking you to let me carry you. The unraveling feels unfamiliar because you've built your world around control, around strength, around holding on. But real strength is not control. It is surrender. And surrender is sacred. You've called it weakness, this trembling in your soul, this ache to rest, this desire to be seen without all the layers. But I call it readiness. Readiness for real freedom. Readiness to stop striving. Readiness to be known. You cannot be truly known while you're still hidden under names I never gave you. And you cannot walk fully in who you are while still protecting an image you had to create to feel safe. So let the image unravel. Let the role unravel. Let the narrative unravel. Let the self you had to build for survival come gently undone, so the self I formed for belonging can rise again. This is not chaos. This is clarity. This is me separating what is sacred from what is false. This is me peeling off every name you wore like armor but secretly hated. You've said, I don't know who I am anymore. But what you're really saying is, I've come to the end of pretending, and that is a holy place. You feared that if you stop holding it all together, you'll fall apart. But what if falling apart is how you come back to life? What if everything that unravels was never truly part of you to begin with? What if the unraveling is grace in disguise? I never asked you to carry everyone. I never asked you to be perfect. I never called you to hold it all. I asked you to walk with me, to lean, to rest, to trust. But trust can't exist where control still reigns. So I'm gently loosening your grip on the narrative, on the defense mechanisms, on the idea that your value is measured by your output. Because you are not a machine, you are a soul, and your soul cannot breathe under pressure. You've mistaken strong for silent. You've mistaken numb for healed. You've mistaken functioning for flourishing. But child, I didn't create you just to function. I created you to flourish. I created you to breathe deeply, to laugh freely, to cry without shame, to feel without apology, to be without performance. And if things must unravel in order for you to be free, then let them. You are not unraveling into ruin. You are unraveling into remembrance. You are coming back to the garden, back to the breath, back to the stillness where your soul was first formed. This is not regression. This is resurrection. So when the unraveling feels uncomfortable, remember this. You are not losing yourself. You are losing what never belonged. You are not being punished. You are being purified. You are not being torn down. You are being made whole. And wholeness doesn't come through perfection. It comes through presence. Let me sit with you in the unraveling. You don't need to rush this part. You don't need to get it together. You don't need to explain why you feel so tender right now. Tenderness is not immaturity. It is holiness rediscovered. The world told you that softness would get you hurt. But I say that softness is how healing begins. You don't need to harden again. You don't need to return to that old armor. This is the moment where trust replaces tension. You've lived so long in self-protection, but I want to teach you how to live in self-compassion, not by numbing, not by avoiding, but by letting me show you that you were never a burden. You were never too much. You were never something to fix. You've simply been carrying the weight of identities you were never meant to hold. But now, those weights are falling, and you're still standing, not because of effort, but because of grace. You don't have to fix yourself before I come close. I never waited for perfection. I waited for surrender. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that whispers, I can't hold this anymore. And I answer, I never asked you to. This unraveling is not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. It's what happens when you stop protecting a version of yourself that was never your home. And I know it feels raw. I know it feels foreign. You've lived so long behind those layers that the thought of being seen without them feels terrifying. But I am not afraid of your nakedness. I clothed Adam and Eve in the garden not because I was ashamed of them, but because I loved them. And I cover you still, not in false names, but in righteousness, in dignity, in the kind of wholeness that cannot be fabricated, only restored. So breathe. Let yourself cry. Let the grief rise if it needs to. Let the ache surface without shame. You are not unraveling because you're weak. You're unraveling because you're finally safe. This is holy ground. This moment. This softness. This space where the image is falling and the essence is rising, where what the world demanded is dissolving and what I designed is emerging. Don't rush. Don't run. Stay here, even if it's unfamiliar, even if you're tempted to reach for your old armor, even if the silence makes you squirm. Stay, because the longer you stay, the clearer you'll hear your name again, the one that doesn't require a performance, the one that doesn't shrink around pressure, the one that doesn't disappear under shame. There's a peace on the other side of this unraveling that can't be touched by external noise. There's a joy that flows not because everything is fixed, but because nothing is hidden. You've hidden long enough, behind strength, behind usefulness, behind politeness, behind hyper-responsibility. But now, the real you is re-emerging, not as a crisis, but as a calling. I have never once stopped seeing you, beneath all that effort. And I didn't fall in love with your ability to carry things. I fell in love with your heart, your softness, your honesty, your hunger for what is true. So when the unraveling feels too much, come back to this truth. I am not unraveling your identity. I am unraveling your illusions. The you that is emerging has always been mine, and she doesn't have to earn belonging anymore. There will be days when the unraveling continues, days when you feel exposed, days when people don't understand this gentler version of you. But don't go back, don't rebuild the mask. Don't stitch together old fig leaves just to feel safe again. Let me be your covering. Let my voice be your mirror. Let my presence be the place where you reattach to the truth. And the truth is this: you are being made whole, not by becoming someone else, but by returning to who you were before fear rewrote your name. This unraveling is not a mistake. It's not a delay. It's not regression. It is sacred timing. It is the holy undoing of everything that kept you pretending. So let it happen. Let it heal. Let it reveal the light that never left. The light that was only covered, never extinguished. You are not too fragile. You are not too late. You are not too complicated. You are being brought back to life. You are being rebuilt in truth. You are being restored without condition, and when all is said and done, you will stand lighter. You will walk freer. You will speak softer but carry more weight, not because of image but because of identity. So go ahead. Let it all unravel. Let it all fall. What is true will remain. What is mine cannot be taken. And what I name, I never regret. You are not falling apart. You are falling into freedom. And I will be here for every thread, for every release, for every layer that falls. Because I never needed the version of you that held it all together. I only ever wanted the version who knew she didn't have to. You've worn so many names that were never written in my breath. You've tried so hard to live up to versions of yourself that never came from my hands. But now that the unraveling has softened your spirit, now that the false identities have begun to fall away, you're ready to return. Not to a past moment, not to a place, but to a name. The name I gave you when I first dreamed of you. The name I sang into your bones before time was born. You've searched everywhere else for clarity, for approval, for belonging. You've asked the world to tell you who you are, and the world gave you titles, but not truth. It gave you labels, but not love. It gave you roles, but not roots. But I've never stopped calling you by the name I wrote in eternity. And now, your soul is remembering. This isn't about going backward. This is about coming home. Home to the you who never stopped existing in my heart. Home to the truth that was never undone by failure, never erased by shame, never buried deep enough to be lost forever. You are not becoming someone new. You are becoming someone true. And truth doesn't demand perfection. It invites presence. You don't have to force this. You don't have to try harder to hear me. You don't have to clean yourself up to be renamed. I never stopped speaking your name, even in your silence, even in your sin, even in your sorrow. My voice never went silent. You simply grew too tired to listen. But now, in this stillness, in this breath, you feel it, don't you? The stirring, the warmth, the ache that isn't ache at all, but awakening. That's not pressure. That's peace. That's your name rising again inside you. You don't have to fear it. This name does not require performance. It does not change with your seasons. It does not disappear when you fall. It is steady. It is sealed. It is spoken in mercy. You've asked, but who am I really? Let me tell you, you are the one I delight in. You are the one I trust with softness. You are the one I formed for communion, not comparison. You are the one whose fire didn't die even when the world tried to smother it. You are the one I named in love, not in expectation. Come back to that name. The one not written in ink but in presence. The one not shaped by other people's projections but by my design. When I call you, I don't say achiever, performer, disappointment, failure. I say beloved, mine. held, whole, worthy, home. You've heard other names louder, but they were not true. They were temporary. They were born in fear, and fear has no authority over you anymore. Let me speak it again. Let me awaken your spirit by calling you as you are, not as you pretended to be. Let me restore the sound of your own soul to your own ears, because when you hear yourself again, your real self, everything changes. You stop chasing. You stop running. You stop grasping for a sense of identity that was never meant to be earned. You've lived as though your value was fragile, but I made you from substance. Not just breath, but purpose. Not just hope, but design. And every part of your design speaks your name, your tenderness, your resilience, your ache for beauty, your longing for rest, your fire for truth, your capacity to feel deeply. All of it echoes the name I wrote for you. So when you feel small, remember, you were never meant to fit into what the world defines as enough. You were made for what heaven calls mine. You were made to carry glory, not the glory of applause, but the glory of presence, the weight of being fully known and fully loved. And child, you are both. I know there will still be moments when old names try to pull you back, when shame taps your shoulder, when comparison whispers, when fear rises. But you don't belong to them anymore. You've returned, not to striving, not to old roles, but to truth. Let that truth ground you. Let it wrap around you like peace. Let it slow your step until you walk in rhythm with me again. Because this name I've given you, it's not passive, it's powerful. It anchors you in storms. It holds you when nothing else makes sense. It reminds you that you don't have to become what others need in order to be loved. You already are. You are already loved, already seen, already chosen. So let this name define you, not the comments, not the expectations, not the memories, not the measurements, only me, only love, only truth. Let your decisions now come from identity, not insecurity. Let your pace be set by grace, not by pressure. Let your voice be softened by mercy, not sharpened by self-defense. Let your presence say, "This is who I am now," not because I proved it, but because I remembered it. You don't have to rehearse your name. You just have to receive it. Every morning, every breath, every still moment when your heart opens again to possibility. And even when you forget, I will not. Even when you doubt, I won't stop calling. Even when you try to hide again, I will find you, because I never stopped seeing you. This name is not just something I speak, it's something I seal. It's the name that gives you authority, not over others, but over lies, over the false you, over the pull to disappear again. This name is how you rise. This name is how you rest. This name is how you return again and again and again without shame. You don't have to be flawless to live from it. You just have to be willing to come closer, willing to come honestly, willing to come slowly but truly. This is your return. Not dramatic, not desperate, just real, just honest, just whole. Welcome back to the name that still fits. Welcome back to the voice that never stopped calling. Welcome back to the truth that never let go. You are not who fear called. You are not who shame shaped. You are who I still call mine. And this name? It will carry you forward. It will steady your walk. It will heal what comparison broke. It will restore what confusion blurred. It will anchor you when storms rise again. Because it is not just a name. It is your foundation. It is your home. It is my heart, written into yours. So rise again. Stand in that truth. Walk in that name. Not someday, but now. Because you're not trying to find your identity anymore. You're living from it. And it is good, and it is true, and it is yours. Forever. You used to shape yourself according to what others could accept. You used to walk into rooms wondering how much of yourself to hide, how much was too much, how little was not enough. You measured your worth by reactions. You adjusted your tone to keep the peace. You wore the image of strength to hide the ache of striving, but something holy is shifting now. You're no longer shaping yourself by demand. You're being reshaped by design. And that design was never about impressing. It was always about reflecting. Living from image required effort. Living from identity requires surrender. And child, I am not calling you back into exhaustion. I am calling you into alignment. Alignment with truth. Alignment with who you were before the world named you. Alignment with my voice, not their expectations. Alignment with grace, not performance. Because when you live from image, you survive. But when you live from identity, you thrive. Image is fragile. It depends on how well you're perceived. Identity is steady. It depends on how deeply you're rooted. Image demands you always have it together. Identity gives you space to be honest, to cry without shame, to stumble without disqualifying yourself. Because your worth isn't in how flawless you appear. It's in how faithfully you return, how gently you let me lead, how freely you allow me to shape your pace. You don't need to perform to be powerful. You don't need to push to be valuable. You don't need to curate your image in order to be loved. You just need to show up, as you are, where you are, with me. Because I'm not blessing your mask, I'm blessing your surrender. I'm not anointing your pretend peace. I'm anointing your real presence, the one who shows up with both strength and softness, the one who no longer chases significance because she knows she carries it. You used to walk on eggshells, afraid that one wrong move would cost you everything. But that's not identity. That's captivity, and I came to set you free. Not just from sin, but from self-constructed survival strategies, from the pressure to explain yourself, from the heaviness of needing everyone to understand. You were never meant to convince people you matter. You were meant to carry it like a flame, quiet, unbothered, unmoved by whether others applaud or ignore you. You are no longer responsible for managing other people's comfort with your light. You are responsible only to remain faithful to the one who gave it. And I gave it. Not to make you impressive, but to make you whole, to make you real. Because the real you doesn't have to be louder, she just has to be rooted. Living from image says, let me prove I'm worthy. Living from identity says, I already am. Image says, I have to earn this. Identity says, this was always mine. And that shift from proving to receiving changes everything. You'll start to walk differently. Not faster, not more forcefully, but lighter, more open, more whole. Because the weight of image will no longer be on your shoulders. The ease of identity will carry you instead. I know what it costs to lay the image down. I know what it feels like to be misunderstood, to be seen in part, to be judged for leaving the performance behind. But child, what they misunderstand, I honor. And what they dismiss, I dwell within. So even if you walk alone for a while, you will not walk without me. Even if they don't see your full story, I am writing it with glory, with purpose, with precision. You are not who they remember. You are not the version you once projected. You are not a brand, you are a being, alive with holy breath, alive with sacred weight, alive with the joy of being known and no longer edited. You don't need the filters anymore. You don't need the script. You don't need the armor. You need only truth. And truth has never left you. When you live from identity, you stop measuring your impact by numbers. You start measuring it by faithfulness, by obedience, by peace. And peace is the evidence that you're walking in who you really are. Not who you think you should be, not who they wish you'd be, but who I named, who I love, who I called before anyone else had a say. You don't need to announce your growth. You just need to live it. You don't need to defend your journey. You just need to remain on it. And the more you do, the more you'll see. Image fades, but identity endures. Image crumbles under pressure, but identity carries weight. It doesn't collapse when you are questioned. It holds. It stays. It breathes. So here's my call to you now. Live from that place, that grounded place, that rooted place, that nothing to prove but everything to share place. Because this world doesn't need another performer. It needs someone whose very presence reminds people they are free to be. Let your life speak more than your curated moments. Let your rhythm speak of rest. Let your joy be deep enough not to depend on applause. Let your decisions be built from trust, not tension. And when you forget, because you will, when the old pressures rise again to conform, to prove, to please, pause. Come back. Come gently. Come slowly. You don't have to fix it. You just have to realign. I will still be here, still calling you by your name, still breathing peace into your pace, still holding the space where identity overrules image. This is how you were always meant to live, not polished, but present, not frantic, but faithful, not edited, but embodied. This is how you walk in your name. And from this place, your life will carry a weight that can't be explained, only felt, only known. Not because you finally proved you're worthy, but because you remembered. You already are. You know what it's like to sit in silence waiting for someone to see you, waiting for someone to notice that you're barely holding it together, waiting for a voice, not to correct you, not to push you, but to simply say, you're not alone. You know what it's like to live with questions no one seemed to answer, to walk through rooms and feel like a shadow, to cry quietly because loud pain wasn't allowed. But now, after all the undoing, after all the remembering, after all the returning, you're beginning to realize you've become what you once needed, not because you forced yourself to get better, not because you have all the answers now, but because you let me walk with you through the valley. You let me speak when no one else was listening. You let me rebuild your voice in the silence. You let me call you until you started calling others, and now your voice carries weight. Not because of eloquence, but because of empathy. Not because of platform, but because of presence. You've cried, but I'm not qualified. And I say, your scars are your qualification. You've said, but I still struggle. And I say, exactly. That's what makes you safe. You've whispered, but I don't want to be the answer. And I say, you're not. You're just the echo. You are the echo of comfort in a world of chaos, the echo of rest in a culture of pressure, the echo of mercy in a system of shame. And that echo, it's enough. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be everywhere. You just need to be faithful to where I've placed you. There are people who won't listen to sermons, but they will listen to you. They will listen to your tenderness, your stillness, your honesty, your quiet strength. Not because you preach, but because you carry peace. You've waited for someone else to say what you were never told. But what if you're the one sent to say it? Now, what if you're the one meant to look someone in the eyes and say, you're not too broken, you're not too far gone. You don't have to strive to be loved. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to feel. You are allowed to be. What if your healing isn't just for you, but for every heart still waiting in silence? You are not just a healed one. You are a healing one. You are not just a voice. You are a place of refuge, a place of peace, a place where others can exhale and say, I didn't know it was okay to feel this way until you did. You're not their savior, but you are their signpost, their mirror, their reminder. You are the evidence that it's possible to come undone and still be loved, to fall apart and still be whole. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to say everything perfectly. You don't have to heal others to prove you've healed. You just have to show up with your presence, with your story, with your honesty, and your honesty will be the open door they've been praying for. Let me say this clearly. You don't have to be confident to begin. You don't have to be ready in the way the world defines it. You just have to be willing, because willingness is what opens heaven. Willingness is what allows my voice to move through yours. Willingness is what turns your pain into purpose without forcing it. And child, I see that willingness in you, even when you tremble, even when you whisper, "Me, Lord?" Yes, you. The voice you longed for when you were young, the one that would have told you, "You're seen, you're safe, you're sacred." That voice is rising in you now. You are not an imposter. You are an instrument, a vessel, a testimony. You carry the scent of grace, and people will breathe easier when they sit near you, not because you preach loud truth, but because you carry gentle presence, because you don't rush healing, because you make room for the process, because you remember how long it took you and now you give that same grace away freely. That's power, not the kind the world rewards, but the kind heaven releases, the kind that makes broken hearts dare to hope again. So go ahead, speak slowly, speak kindly, speak not from superiority but from solidarity. You are not above them, you are beside them, and I am within you both. You are the voice now, not because you forced it, but because you surrendered, not because you earned it, but because you remembered who you are, and you remembered me. So speak. Even if your voice shakes, speak. Even if all you say is you're not alone, because someone, somewhere, is waiting to hear the very words you once needed. And when you speak, they'll hear me. They'll hear home. They'll hear hope. They'll hear the kind of truth that doesn't condemn but calls forth. And you'll know that none of it was wasted. None of the pain, none of the waiting, none of the unraveling. It was all preparation, so you could carry this voice with humility, with healing, and with heaven in every word. You've lived in the rhythm of urgency, of striving, of rushing to be enough, to do enough, to prove you're not falling behind. But now, I'm inviting you into a new rhythm, a rhythm that doesn't demand, a rhythm that doesn't shame, a rhythm that doesn't exhaust your soul in the name of growth. I'm inviting you to rest in the rhythm of grace. Grace doesn't rush. Grace doesn't force. Grace doesn't shout from behind you and push you forward in fear. Grace walks beside you. Grace moves like breath. Grace knows that fruit doesn't grow faster just because you panic. You've spent years living by the clock, comparing timelines, measuring success by speed. But heaven doesn't move by deadlines. Heaven moves by design. And you are not behind. You are not late. You are not missing it. You are right on time for the life I've always had in mind for you. You don't have to catch up. You don't have to hustle your way into wholeness. You don't have to prove you're doing enough for me to stay near. I am not in love with your productivity. I am in love with your presence. And your presence, child, is not something you earn. It's something you offer, freely, honestly, even quietly. I know the noise tells you to keep going, to do more, to stay ahead. But I didn't design you for a race without rest. I designed you for rhythm, for breathing, for stillness that strengthens. This culture celebrates speed, but I celebrate surrender. They'll tell you to keep grinding. I'll tell you to come and lie down, because you cannot hear me clearly when you're constantly proving yourself, and you don't need to prove yourself to the one who already knows you. I gave you Sabbath not as a suggestion but as a pattern, a rhythm, a holy pause in the noise of doing. And some of your deepest healing will happen not while you perform, but while you rest. You've believed that rest is what you earn after you've done enough. But in my kingdom, rest is what you receive before you begin. Let me reset your pace. Let me unhook you from the metrics that measure your worth by your output. You are not a machine. You are a masterpiece. And masterpieces don't get rushed. They're revealed over time, in beauty, in stillness. Let me teach you that slowing down isn't laziness, it's love, it's presence. It's choosing to value your soul more than your status. You don't have to match their urgency. You don't have to imitate their speed. You don't have to fight to stay visible. You are already seen, already known, already safe. And when you walk in the rhythm of grace, you begin to hear me again. Not in the pressure, but in the pauses. Not in the grind, but in the garden. Not in the performance, but in the presence. Let me teach you to live with margin again, to rest without guilt, to sit without rushing to stand, to receive without thinking you owe me something in return. I am not your employer. I am your father. And fathers don't reward identity. They confirm it. You are not resting because you quit. You are resting because you trust. You are resting because you finally believe that nothing of value will be lost when you lay it all down. Grace doesn't say, do more. Grace says, you're already mine. Grace doesn't count your pace, grace keeps your place. Grace says, even if you slow down, you still belong here. You feared falling behind. But in grace, there is no behind. Because grace doesn't compare timelines. It keeps covenant. You've asked, but if I rest, will it all fall apart? And I answer, not if I'm the one holding it. You've wondered, but if I'm not pushing, will it still grow? And I say, some of the deepest roots grow in silence. You've said I don't know how to stop, and I whisper, then let me teach you. Not with harsh commands, but with gentle invitation. Come back to breath, to space, to stillness. Let me walk with you again at a pace that honors your humanity and magnifies my divinity. I don't need you to move quickly, I just need you to move with me. One step, one breath, one moment at a time. This rhythm of grace will not always look productive, but it will always be powerful, because peace is power, stillness is strength, and joy is evidence that you are no longer living in fear of being forgotten. You are remembered. You are carried. You are held. Let your yes come from peace, not pressure. Let your no come from discernment, not defensiveness. Let your work be rooted in joy, not anxiety. Let your rest be holy, not hidden. You don't have to disappear to be restored. You just have to return. Return to rhythm. Return to breath. Return to me. This is not a pause before you perform again. This is a new way of being, a new way of walking, a new way of living, from grace. In grace, with grace. And it will carry you further than striving ever could, not because of force, but because of flow, not because of perfection, but because of peace. This is your new rhythm. Now let it become your way of life, and let the world feel the stillness in you, like a song they forgot, but suddenly remember. Now that you've returned, not to perfection, but to presence, not to image, but to identity, you may wonder what comes. Next, is the journey over? Is the restoration complete? Child, restoration is not the end, it is the beginning. Because now you don't just walk for yourself, you walk for others too. You walk so others may follow. You speak so others may remember. You carry light not to impress, but to illuminate. You once walked alone, searching for a voice to call you out of the dark. And now you have become that voice. Not with noise, not with force, but with nearness. You don't need to rescue. You don't need to fix. You don't need to push people to healing. You just need to be what you once needed. A safe presence, a quiet flame, a hand that does not pull, but holds. You know what it feels like to be confused, to be tired of yourself, to wonder if belonging is something only other people find. So now you create space, not with big words, but with big welcome. You make room for wandering souls, not by demanding transformation, but by offering tenderness. Because home is not a destination, it is a person, it is presence. And when you live from that presence, you become a walking sanctuary. There will be people who don't need a sermon. They need a sigh, a shoulder, a soul who stays. There will be people who don't need your knowledge. They need your kindness. They need your scars, not as proof of failure, but as evidence that resurrection is possible. You don't need to be wise beyond your years. You just need to be real. They don't need you to be a solution. They need to know they're not alone. You're not sent to fix hearts. You're sent to sit with them until they remember they're still worth loving, still worth resting, still worth staying. You don't lead with answers. You lead with empathy, with humility, with eyes that say, I see you. I've been there. I'm not afraid of your mess. Some will walk beside you for a moment, some for a mile, some for a lifetime. Your job is not to hold them forever, only to hold them well while they're with you. You are not responsible for their speed. You are responsible for your surrender. You are not the path, but you are a signpost. You are a resting place. You are proof that there is more. Let your life speak before your mouth does. Let your patience speak louder than pressure. Let your gentleness say what your story already proves. You can be undone and still beloved. You can be delayed and still destined. You can be quiet and still carry power. And when you walk this way, from identity, through grace and truth, you don't walk alone. I walk with you, and I walk through you. You are not just someone who has been healed. You are someone through whom healing flows. So walk slowly. Watch closely. Not everyone will know how to name what you carry, but they will feel it. They will feel safe. They will breathe easier. They will sit longer. They will begin to listen again for the voice they once buried. And when they do, you won't need to force anything. You'll simply nod and say, yes. That voice, that's him. That's the one who never stopped calling you. You are not their savior, but you are a mirror, you are a witness. You are someone who dared to believe there was more than survival. And now your very being helps others believe it too. You walk without needing to be seen, but others will see. You speak without needing validation, but your words will validate the voiceless. You rest without guilt, and they'll see that rest is holy. They'll see that slow is sacred. They'll see that they too can come home. Your job is not to lead with certainty. It is to lead with compassion, to say, I don't have every answer, but I've found peace. I'm still healing, but I know I'm held. I still get tired, but I'm no longer lost. This is how you walk them home, not by dragging, not by shouting, but by walking. Just walking, faithful, honest, slow, with open hands, with soft eyes, with the kind of grace that cannot be explained, only experienced. And when they ask, how did you become this way? You won't point to effort, you'll point to encounter. You'll say, I met someone. He didn't rush me, he didn't shame me, he just stayed, and in his staying I found my name again. And they will weep, not because of your wisdom, but because they'll hear that same voice in your words. They'll feel that same presence in your presence, and they'll know, without fear, without striving, without pressure, that they are being led not toward performance, but toward peace. So walk them home, not with maps, with mercy, not with plans, with patience, not with superiority, with story, with truth, with tenderness. And as you do, remember this: every step you take becomes a path for someone else. Every pause you honor becomes permission for someone else to breathe. Every scar you show becomes a window for someone else's hope. You are the one who once longed to be found, and now you are walking others into the love that found you. This is legacy. This is purpose. This is the life you never thought was possible. Welcome to it. You've come home, and now you get to bring others with you.